signs of smoke inhalation. Most had to pass through smoke-filled floors to get to safety.
It was tough to breathe, very tough to breathe.
We put our coat over my face, and then I was able to breathe, and we were able to get through the smoke.
Hey, Chief, where you going? Which one? Where?
One of the major concerns with smoke exposure is carbon monoxide poisoning. Dizziness, weakness, and confusion are indications of victims inhaling this odorless and tasteless gas.
Carbon monoxide is probably the most dangerous of the toxic gases, and it's a major cause of people found dead at fires.
Carbon monoxide prevents oxygen from being carried by the blood. It can lead to coma and brain damage when severe, and is even more dangerous to smoke victims who have heart and lung problems. Another danger is chemicals in the smoke.
In certain situations, such as potentially this situation, there are gaseous cyanide compounds and other products of burning plastics and wood.
Patients with minor problems can be treated immediately on the scene with humidified oxygen. More serious breathing problems must be checked out more thoroughly.
First thing we do is actually look down their windpipes with an instrument which lets us see the inside of the trachea and the airways. Then we can tell if there is a major injury. If there's major injury around the vocal cords, then we actually put a tube through their nose and down through the vocal cords so they won't obstruct their airways. Minor airway injuries can be treated just with humidified oxygen and air. Some patients get to be very hoarse and have sore throats, and we just treat that symptomatically.
For the better part of the afternoon, it was a steady stream of injured people, survivors from the explosion at the World Trade Center. Workers there who at the beginning of the day may have been saying, "Thank goodness it's Friday tonight." They were saying, "Thank goodness they were alive."
Scary.
Really?
Yep.
Can you tell me anything else?
Just kind of scary. It's kind of frightening, too.
Most of the injuries were smoke inhalation. Some were more serious than others. One man is in critical condition tonight. For some, the treatment was needed because the smoke aggravated existing conditions.
It's terrible. We were on the 32nd floor, and it was really difficult to get down. My mother made it out from the 105th floor. In fact, I got to go help her because she's got chronic emphysema.
This is a hospital that is used to dealing with scores of serious injuries. Technically, it is a level 1 facility that is staffed and equipped to cope with virtually any major disaster.
It's a major calamity in this city. I think there's no question about that. I don't think we know yet the full magnitude of it.
Now, what are you prepared to do here? Are you prepared to take hundreds of people if necessary?
We're prepared to take as many people as we have to take and to treat as many people as we have to treat.
St. Vincent's Hospital has never seen a flow of injury victims such as it saw this afternoon. For several hours, ambulances poured into the hospital's emergency entrance on 7th Avenue. City and suburban ambulances were called into service. As many as 6 injury victims were packed into a single ambulance. By mid-afternoon, the hospital was able to tally up the patient flow.
Approximately 3/4 of the patients are suffering from severe or lesser degrees of smoke inhalation. One of the patients been on a respirator. At least one patient has been in cardiac arrest. We've had one patient with a fractured skull, and regrettably, one patient brought to St. Vincent's expired approximately 2:30 p.m.
For 40-year-old firefighter Bill Chupa, this was a scene that he will never forget. The lobby of the World Trade Center filled with thick, choking smoke.
It was like an apocalypse, I guess you could say. It was a very heavy, dense smoke situation. We knew there was an explosion of some kind, but we weren't sure where it was. But we did know that there was a hell of a lot of smoke.
He says that his fellow firefighters had to tie ropes to trees in the lobby to keep from getting lost. Chupa says it was like being in the Twilight Zone, and it was similar to the 1991 subway derailment at Union Square and 14th Street.
If you saw the 14th Street disaster when the fella crashed those trains, that was nothing compared to this. It was unbelievable. People screaming in the background.
Chupa was treated here at Bellevue Hospital along with at least a dozen other firefighters. In all, some 53 people were treated here as they arrived in ambulances all afternoon in one of the worst disasters in recent memory.
It's a major calamity in this city. I think there's no question about that. I don't think we know yet the full magnitude of it.
Now, what are you prepared to do here? Are you prepared to take hundreds of people if necessary?
We're prepared to take as many people as we have to take and to treat as many people as we have to treat.
And for those who were injured, many were still in shock and could barely speak about their ordeal.
Scary.
Really?
Yep.
Can you tell me anything else?
Just kind of scary. It's kind of frightening too.
It was terrible. We were on the 32nd floor and it was really difficult to get down. My mother made it out from the 105th floor. In fact, I got to go help her because she's got chronic emphysema.
Shortly after the explosion, the first of over 100 casualties began to arrive at New York Downtown Hospital. By evening, the victims, most of whom were suffering from smoke inhalation and shock, were all out of danger. Doctors described a situation that was largely under control.
We don't have many serious injuries. Most of the patients have just simple smoke inhalation. We have about 20 to 25 receiving, extensive care.
104 people have been treated at downtown's emergency room. None were fatalities. One of the first to arrive described the scene after the explosion.
When it exploded, somehow I went back and my desk fell on top of me. So when the walls came down, it came on top of the desk. And I just crawled out. I carried my buddy he was pretty bleeding. He was bleeding pretty good.
By evening, just 2 victims had been admitted to downtown hospital, one a fireman who broke his kneecap. As another victim was leaving the hospital, it was clear he was still suffering the aftershock.
In the beginning, I didn't think much of it, but as the smoke started getting thicker and thicker, I was just thinking, am I going to make it out?
It was well into the evening that fleets of ambulances filled 7th Avenue at the St. Vincent emergency entrance. Victims of the World Trade Center explosion had poured into the hospital for hours this afternoon. It was late in the evening when the hospital held its last news conference of the day.
We had received 156 patients from this disaster, 29 of whom are members of the New York Police or Fire Department or the Port Authority. There have been 35 admissions to St. Vincent's from the injured. 7 people have been admitted to the critical care units.
Many of the accident victims released knew they had a close call.
We were just sitting there eating lunch, and next thing you know, the lights went out and the wall just exploded towards us. And it was rubble and guys moaning and screaming everywhere, and we were just trying to find our way out.
As to those still in the hospital, what was the nature of their medical problems?
Most of those patients are in the surgical intensive care unit where they've had some type of trauma. Several of them have had fractures. And in addition, there's a couple of patients in the surgical intensive care unit who did have some inhalation burns of their upper airways and lungs.